Hello and welcome. We are in chapter number 6. In this session, we need to start chapter number 6, which deals with input tax credit. In short, we'll be calling the input tax credit as ITC. Friends, before you watch this chapter, I advise you to watch the GST class number 1. GST class number 1. You watch that GST class number 1, wherein we have examined the erstwhile indirect tax regimes and what is the concept of ITC, how ITC input credit will be taken, because of which the cascading effect will be eliminated. Those points, conceptual points, we have learnt in GST class number 1, the very first class and the second class. So before you watch this, you start watching this chapter, you watch that class 1 and class 2 once again, so that you will have a better understanding and you will be able to appreciate this chapter in a better manner. So input tax credit, in short, we will be calling it as a ITC. Now, the provisions what we are learning in this chapter are the provisions as contained in the CGST Act. Of course, similar provisions will be there in the IGST Act as well as the SGST and UTGST Acts. Now, what are the learning outcomes of this chapter? Number 6, dealing with input tax credit ITC. You will be able to describe what are the inputs, what are the input services, what are the capital goods, and what are the other terms which are used in relation to ITC. What are the conditions, what is the timeline, what are the restrictions, and what are the processes for taking the ITC on goods as well as services, and in special circumstances also. You will be able to identify those items on which ITC is available, and also blocked credits, that means on those items on which ITC is not available. What is the concept relating to availment of proportionate ITC? When common inputs or common input services or capital goods are used or intended to be used for exempted and taxable supplies or business and non-business activities. So, you may be procuring some inputs or input services or capital goods on which you have paid GST. Now you are utilizing those inputs or input services or capital goods in supplying, in making outward supplies of exempted as well as taxable items, or for business use as well as non-business use. So in such a case, the entire amount of input tax credit is not available to you, only proportionate in ITC will be available. How to calculate that proportionate ITC also we will be able to understand in this chapter. You will be able to understand as to the provisions relating to utilization of ITC to compute GST liability of a registered person. Where a person is making outward supplies which are taxable under GST. GST being an ad valorem tax where a rate of percentage has to be applied on the value of supply. You will get the output tax. However, what will be the net tax payable by him? The output tax computed minus the input tax credit available subject to conditions. Balance amount he has to pay to the government. So we'll be able to understand, analyze, comprehend and apply the provisions of value of supply, time of supply, input tax credit, etc. And we will be arriving at the net tax payable by the SSC. Next, what will be the chapter overview? We will be understanding the relevant definitions. My dear friends, some of the definitions we have already dealt with in the earlier chapters, but here they are repeated once again. Some definitions are given in some 2 or 3 chapters. If there is a repetitive definition, we will skip that, and if there is a definition which we did not analyze or understand in any of the earlier chapters, we will be discussing it in detail in this chapter. What is the eligibility and conditions for availing the input tax credit? How you have to apportionment of credit and blocked credits? How ITC is available in special circumstances? How ITC is to be utilized? Availment is one thing, utilization is another thing. Now we will go into the para number 1, introduction part of it. Friends, I sincerely told you and I advise you that before you start watching this chapter, you once watch our GST class number 1. Right? These paragraphs we have dealt with in the GST class 1. So in the earlier indirect tax regime, what used to happen? There was a credit mechanism in the indirect taxes for central excise and service tax, because the excise duty as well as this means central excise duty. Of course, excise duty on alcohol for human consumption is a state subject. Other than that, what I am dealing is central excise duty, that is the central levy levied by the central government. Service tax is also levied by the central government. Now there was a credit mechanism in both of these under the SANVAT credit rules 2004, and also there used to be a credit mechanism in the state level VAT also. So the state level VAT legislations also has a mechanism of allowing credit, input credit on inputs as well as capital goods. However, that was restricted to intra-state activity only. But if the inputs or capital goods are procured from outside the state, wherein CST was payable, then there was no allowability of input tax credit. Why, etc. has been dealt in our class number 1. Now, as far as the SANVAT credit rules 2004 are concerned, which deals with the central excise and service tax, the cross utilization of credit was available. If you take input services and if you are manufacturing, the ITC on input services was allowed to be set off and from the output tax of the goods manufactured and vice versa. And this was available across the country, because this being central levy, this used to apply even in respect of interstate activity also, and that was only applicable to SANVAT, means for central excise and service tax. But however, if someone is procuring goods or services from the other state, now is carrying out the manufacture and selling it locally, on which the local VAT law was applicable, now the input credit was not available in those cases. Or where a trader procures goods from out of the state on which he pays CST at the preceding point, now if he is making intra-state sale, then the input credit of CST already paid was not allowed, because CST went to the central government, or in respect of CST, it would be collected by the state from where the movement of goods commences. Now here, if intra-state sale is made, that CST was not available as a setup, thereby it led to cascading effect. However, coming to our GS, and the same is in respect of a service. Suppose there was an input service that has been availed, and an output service, output manufacturing was there. Then the on manufacturing, if excise duty is leviable, service tax used to be allowed as a credit. But as far as when the manufactured goods are sold, on which the local state VAT was payable, the excise duty paid or the service tax paid on the inputs was on inputs or input services was not allowed as a credit. So to that extent there used to be cascading effect. However, coming to GST regime, it promises seamless credits on goods and services across the entire supply chain. However, there are some exceptions. Suppose if you procure inputs from a composition scheme dealer, or if you procure exempted goods or exempted services, then there can't be any seamless credit in those instances. Now, input tax credit is considered to be the lifeline of the GST regime. Now, the provisions are of ITC will make the GST a value added tax, because whatever tax is payable now, it will be paid only after set off of GST which was paid at an earlier point, right? Now, chapter 5 of CGST Act, covering section 16 to section 21, and also chapter 5 of input tax credit of CGST rules, rule number 36 to rule number 45 prescribes the provisions relating to ITC. So in CGST Act you have to refer section 16 to 21, and in the CGST rules you have to refer from rule number 36 to rule number 45. Now, in the state level GST laws, as well as the IGST law, as well as the UTGST law, there will be similar provisions. Now, in this chapter, we are dealing only with the 16, 17 and 18 sections of the CGST Act. And the rules which relate to these sections we are going to understand. And the balance of the sections 19, 20 and 21, which relates to ITC in regard to job work, input service distributor, etc., will be dealt at a final level. Whatever provisions of ITC contained under CGST Act are also made applicable to IGST Act, while section 20 of the IGST Act. Now, before going into section 16, 17 and 18 per se, what we have to do is we have to understand some of the definitions. Now, my dear friends, I will tell you one thing. Whatever definitions we are going to understand here are given here. Some of them we have already dealt with in our preceding chapters. Friends, it will be a matter of duplication if we start learning each and every definition again. And what I will do is I will skip those definitions which we have already dealt in our preceding chapters. If you want to understand the definition again, you may please refer the relevant chapter. Agent we have already defined. Business we have defined it in 2 chapters, not 1 chapter. In 2 chapters we have defined. But I am afraid we did not understood or we did not analyze capital goods. Now we will go through what do you mean by capital goods. Capital goods means goods the value of which is capitalized in the books of account. My dear friends, let us say you have procured input goods. Means you have procured a raw material, or you have procured you are a trader, you have procured goods for the purpose of reselling them. What you are going to do? You are going to debit it to the profit and loss account. You have purchased a machinery for the purpose of your business. What you are going to do? You are not going to charge it off to profit and loss account or debit it to profit and loss account, but you are going to take it to the balance sheet on the assets side of the balance sheet. It means that nothing but you are capitalizing. So whatever item you capitalize will be a capital good. A good may be a capital good to you, but for a person who sells the machines, for him it is a normal good. But for you, because the purpose for which you use it, are you procuring it for reselling? No, you are procuring it to for the purpose of carrying on your business, thereby for more than a year or something like that, and thereby you are going to capitalize in the books of accounts of the person claiming the ITC, and which are used or intended to be used in the course or furtherance of business. So the capital goods will cover only those items which are procured in the course or furtherance of business only. You bought an air conditioner for your home. Can it be, will it come within the definition of capital good? It can't come in the definition of capital good. You bought an air conditioner for your office. Will it be covered under capital good? Yes. What do you mean by conveyance? It includes a vessel, aircraft, and a vehicle. Friends, in the brackets, the section numbers have been quoted. What do you mean by exempt supply? This we have already learned, but we will go through it quickly. Goods or services which attracts nil rate, point number 1, plus wholly exempt under section 2, point number 2, plus non-GST or non-taxable supply, point number 3. So these three items are covered under exempt supplies. What do you mean by inputs? Inputs refers to goods other than capital goods. For what purpose they are used? Intended to be used by a supplier in the course or furtherance of business. What do you mean by input services? Input services means services used or intended to be used by a supplier in the course or furtherance of business. What do you mean by input tax? Friends, you understand this carefully. Input tax in relation to a registered person. So ITC is available only for registered persons. Means CGST, SGST, IGST, UTGST charged on supply of goods or services are both made to him. Made to him. Suppose A supplied goods to B. So what is input tax in relation to A? Should be a registered person. This fellow is in Telangana. This fellow is in Andhra Pradesh. He procured goods worth 1 lakh. A supplied goods worth 1 lakh to B. The rate of GST is 18%. So IGST charged is 18,000 rupees. The total invoice price is 1,18,000 rupees. Now for B, what is the input? Input tax is 18,000 IGST is the input tax. It will also include IGST on imported goods, and mind you, it also includes the tax payable under 9.3 or 9.4. What are these? Reverse charge. So here what it implies is, in the reverse charge mechanism, the recipient of goods or services is the person who is liable to pay the tax. So for a reverse charge, if you pay tax yourself instead of the supplier, the tax paid by you as a recipient under the provisions of 9.3 and 9.4, that is reverse charge provisions, you are able to or you are eligible to take input. Of course, whether you can take it or not, we will understand at a later point of time, but that will also be considered as input tax. This is as far as CGST is concerned, reverse charge CGST. This is reverse charge IGST. This is reverse charge SGST. This is reverse charge UTGST. See the definition. It is half page, but it is if you analyze and understand, it is very easy. So input tax in relation to a registered persons means CGST, SGST, IGST, UTGST, right? On what? On goods or services which have been supplied to him. Supplied to him means preceding point. So it will also include IGST on imports, reverse charge CGST, reverse charge IGST, reverse charge SGST, and reverse charge UTGST. However, it does not include composition levy. So, if you procured goods or services from a composition dealer, you might have paid the tax at a composition percentage, but that can't be considered as input in respect of you because you are not eligible to take input tax credit. What do you mean by input tax credit? Means credit of input tax. What is inward supply? Somebody supplied to you. It is inward supply. Receipt of goods or services are both, whether by purchase, acquisition, or any other means, with or without consideration. So, inward supply means somebody supplied to you. You bought it, you acquired it, or you received it by any other means, and it may be with consideration or it may be without consideration. What do you mean by motor vehicle? Motor vehicle will have the same meaning assigned to it in clause 28 of section 2 of the Motor Vehicle Act. Now this is the definition as given in the Motor Vehicle Act. You may go through that for academic interest. Next, what do you mean by non-taxable resident person? Any person who occasionally undertakes transactions. Friends, in the business definition, we have learned that to be considered it as a business, continuity is not a must. So here what is happening? That person who is occasionally undertaking transactions involving supply of goods or services or both, whether as a principal or agent or in any other capacity, but who has no fixed place of business or residence in India. So, the non-resident taxable person is not having any fixed place or business in India, but he is supplying occasionally. What is supplying? Goods or services or both. In the capacity of the principal or in the capacity of agent or in any other capacity. Whom do you mean by principal? This principal, agent, we have already understood. So that person on whose behalf agent carries on the business of supply or receipt of goods or services or both. Now this we did not this definition we did not learn it previously. Quarter. What is a quarter? It is a period comprising of 3 consecutive calendar months ending on the last day of March. So January, March is a quarter. April, June is a quarter. July, September is a quarter. October, December is a quarter. So there are 4 quarters. Now what is the significance of a quarter? We will understand later. Also a composition dealer is to pay tax on a percentage of turnover achieved by him by way of a composition tax. Now, recipient of supply of goods or services are both. Now, we already understood the definition of recipient in one of our earlier chapters that you can refer there. So, what do you mean by supplier? Supplier in relation to goods or services means the person supplying the goods or service or both and includes an agent. Agent will act on behalf of the supplier in relation to goods or services or both supplied. What do you mean by taxable supply? Which are leviable to tax under the CGST Act is a taxable supply. What do you mean by works contract? Why are we learning all these definitions here? We are learning these definitions here because these terms are used in the provisions relating to the ITC. So first of all, we are learning the definitions and then going into the provisions of ITC. Also the same pattern we will follow as we followed in our earlier chapters. That is, first we will go into the uh, statutory provisions, thereafter go into the analysis part, thereafter go into the flowchart part. A works contract means a contract for building, construction, fabrication, completion, erection, installation, fitting out, improvement, modification, repair, maintenance, renovation, alteration, commissioning of any immovable property, wherein transfer of property in goods, whether as goods or in some other form, is involved in the execution of such a contract. You are engaged to construct a building, you are a works contractor. You are engaged to lay a road, you are a works contractor. Or whatever you do is a works contract. In works contract, what will happen? You will transfer the property in goods in one form or other. I am engaged to lay a road, for which I will be procuring these what you call this tar, and also some firewood, and also these what you call these stones, small stones. All these things I will be procuring, I will be buying, and thereafter what I will be doing, I will be handing it over to the municipal authority once the road has been laid. So it is a works contract. Next, what do you mean by a zero rated supply? We will be dealing with a zero rated supply in final level, but we will understand the definition here because in ITC provisions you will come across a terminology called called zero rated supply. So what do you mean by zero rated supply? It is a taxable supply, but a taxable at a 0%. There is a difference between exempt supply as well as zero rated supply. There is a difference, but the outcome is same. In either of the cases, you will not be paying any GST. But one supply you will call it as exempt supply, and one supply you will call it as zero rated supply. Both have different categorizations, and what do you mean by zero rated supply? Means supply of goods or services are both, namely export of goods or service are both, or supply of goods or service are both to SEZ developer or SEZ unit. You are exporting goods or service, or you are supplying goods or service or both to a SEZ unit or a SEZ developer. So these three are considered to be zero rated supplies. Next, we are into the statutory provisions relating to section 16 relating to the ITC. First we will learn what is section 16. Section 16, subsection 1. First, we will go through the statutory provision. Thereafter, we will go into the analysis part. Now, what does 16 subsection 1 say? Every registered person shall subject to conditions and restrictions as may be prescribed and in the manner specified in section 49 is entitled to take a credit of input tax charged on any supplies of goods or services or both to him which are used or intended to be used in the course or furtherance of business, and the said amount shall be credited to his electronic credit ledger. So in 16 subsection 1 itself, you have many conditions that are required to be satisfied in order to avail input tax credit. First of all, you should be a registered person. ITC is not available in an unrestricted manner. It is subjected to certain conditions and restrictions. You have to avail the ITC only in a prescribed manner under section 49. You will be able to take the credit of input charge on the supplies made to you. Made to you means you procure. The ITC will be available on your procurements. However, those procurements are to be used or intended to be used in the course or furtherance of business only. If you buy an air conditioner for your home and you are not eligible to take ITC in your business, now this ITC will be credited to the electronic credit ledger. What do you mean by electronic credit ledger, etc.? We'll be learning at a later point, right? Now, what does subsection 2 says? Notwithstanding anything contained in this section, no registered person shall be entitled to the credit of any input tax in respect of any supply of goods or services to him unless. So here what we have understood is subject to conditions and restrictions. So here we are going to get the conditions and restrictions. What subsection 1 says, you can take input tax credit, but what subsection 2 says, you are not eligible to take input tax credit unless some conditions are satisfied. What are those conditions? You should be in possession of a tax invoice or debit note. Who will issue that? The supplier, who is a registered person, will issue that. Or any other tax paying document. The central government has the power to specify that a person can issue any other document in lieu of a tax invoice, or a class of persons need not issue any document. So the central government has the power. So any of those tax invoice or any other document, you should be it should be in your possession. He has received the goods or services. You are eligible to avail ITC only when you have received the goods or services or both. It shall be deemed that the registered person has received the goods or services, or as the case may be services, when where the goods are delivered by the supplier to a recipient or any other person on the direction of such a registered person, whether acting as an agent or otherwise, before or during the movement of goods, either by way of transfer of documents of title of goods or otherwise. So it is deemed that in this circumstance, goods or services have been received for the purpose of availing ITC. What is the implication of this? We will understand in our analysis part. Where the services are provided by the supplier to any person on the direction of and on account of such a registered person. These two came by way of an amendment. We will understand it in our analysis part. Now, subject to the provisions of section 41, the tax charged in respect of such supply has been actually paid to the government either in cash or through utilization of ITC admissible in respect of the said supply. Friends, this is a very controversial point or provision. Now, this we understood in our GST class number 1 also. Let us say A of Telangana sold goods to B of Andhra Pradesh. Now, the price of the good is 1 lakh and the GST is 18,000 IGST. Now, these goods are inputs 18,000 IGST is input tax credit. Input tax 18,000 IGST is input tax. Now one of the conditions that is required to be satisfied is by A for the purpose of enabling B to take this as ITC is that this amount which has been charged should have been paid to the government either in cash or utilizing the credit balance in the input tax register. Only when the tax at the preceding point has reached the government in the subsequent point ITC is allowed. This is one of the most controversial provision in this CGST statute book. Not only this fellow should be paying the tax but should also furnish the return under section 39 also. So friends, we will go through the condition once again. Point number 1 is this fellow should have the tax invoice or any other document. He should have received the goods or services or both. Of course, sometimes some receipts are deemed to be received, that we will understand in our analysis part. The third point is the tax should have been paid by the supplier either in cash or through the utilization of his input credit, and the supplier should have furnished the returns under section 39 of the CGST Act. Okay, so if these four conditions are satisfied, then alone you are eligible to take input tax credit, provided where the goods against an invoice are received in lots or installments. Sometimes what will happen is my invoice which I have procured is for 1.5 crores, 1 lakh units, 1 lakh units are there. Now this 1 lakh units I will not be able to receive in one carrier. I am going to receive these 1 lakh units in 20 carriers. In 20 carriers I am going to receive. So the ITC on this 1.5 crore, when I will be able to receive or avail? Only on the receipt of last lot or installment. Only after the 20th lorry comes into my family, my 20th lorry comes into my factory. After the 20th lorry is received, then only I will be able to avail the input tax credit. Where a recipient fails to pay to the supplier of goods or services or both, other than the supplier on which tax is payable on reverse charge, the amount towards the value of such supply along with the tax payable thereon within a period of 180 days from the date of issue of invoice by the supplier, an amount equivalent to the ITC availed by the recipient shall be added to his output tax liability along with the interest thereon in such manner as may be prescribed. Friends, you look at this. I have, let us say, on 1st of April 2020, I procured goods worth 1 lakh and paid GST at the rate of 18% IGST from Mr. A. Now I have availed ITC of 18,000. One more condition is that within a period of 180 days from date of invoice, I should pay 1,18,000 to Mr. A. What will happen if I did not pay the entire 1,18,000? 18,000 IGST which I have availed should be reversed. Or it should be added to my output tax liability. It should be reversed means it should be added to my output tax liability. When can I again retake it? When I pay the supplier, I can retake that. Okay, so the invoice should be paid within a period of 180 days. Else, proportionate input tax credit availed should be added to your output tax liability. Should be added back to your output liability along with the interest. This is another point. Along with interest, the recipient shall be entitled to avail of the credit of input tax on payment by him of the amount towards the value of supply of goods or service or both, along with the tax payable thereon. The recipient shall be entitled to avail of the credit of ITC on payments made by him of the amounts towards the value of supply of goods or services or both, along with the tax payable thereon. Next, this we will analyze in our analysis part. Means first what you have to do, you have to reverse if not paid within 180 days. Once you have paid him, you have paid the supplier, then what you can do, you can again retake the input tax credit. Okay, where the registered person has claimed depreciation on the tax component of the cost of capital goods and plant and machinery under the provisions of the Income Tax Act, input tax credit is not available. Means, let us say I procured a machinery for 1 lakh, on which I have paid 5,000 as IGST. Now the total price is 1,05,000. Now if I have claimed depreciation on 1 lakh, I will be able to take ITC of 5,000. If I have claimed depreciation on 1,05,000, if I have claimed depreciation on 1,05,000, then I am not going to get ITC, because on the tax component you can't claim depreciation as well as ITC. Only one is available. Either you can claim depreciation, don't take ITC, or don't claim depreciation, take ITC in respect of the tax component. A registered person shall not be entitled to take ITC in respect of any invoice or debit note for the supply of goods or service or both after the due date for furnishing the return of income under section 39 for the month of September following the end of the financial year which such invoice or invoice relating to such debit note pertains, or furnishing of the annual return whichever is earlier. So for the financial year 2019-2020, there is an invoice dated between these two dates, means that 1/4/19 to 31/3/20. Now the ITC on such invoice can be taken up to 30th September 2020 return, means September 3B return, means that is filed under section 39 and GSTR 1. So September 3B return due date. So the September 3B return due date, or due date for annual return, due date for, here due date should not be taken, here date of annual return. So the due date for September 3B return of 2021 or date of filing the annual return for 1920 financial year, whichever is earlier. Within that period, you have to avail the input tax credit of invoice dated from 1/4/19 to 31/3/20, or a debit note relating to an invoice dated 1/4/19 to 31/3/20. Now, we will go into the rules part of it. Rule number 36. Documentary requirements and conditions for claiming input tax credit. So what are the documentary requirements and conditions that are to be fulfilled to avail input tax credit? The input tax credit shall be availed by a registered person, including the ISD, means input service distributor, on the basis of any of the following documents. What are they? Invoice issued, okay, in accordance with section 31. Invoice issued in accordance with the provisions of clause F of means 31(3)(f), subject to payment of tax. A debit note issued under section 34. A bill of entry or similar document prescribed under Customs Act for imports, IGST paid on imports. The input service distributor invoice or input service distributor credit note or any document issued by an ISD in accordance with rule number 54 sub-rule 1. So in order to avail the input tax credit, you should possess any of these documents. Then only you will be able to avail the input tax credit. Not only that, input tax will be availed by a registered person only if all the applicable particulars as specified in the provisions of chapter 6 are contained in the said document. So simply bringing a paper and saying that it is invoice, so please give me input tax credit, is not allowed. This whatever invoice or document you are possessing should contain all the particulars which are given in chapter 6, that is for invoices. Now, and also is furnished in form GSTR2 by such person. So input tax credit will be available by a registered person only if all the particulars are specified in the chapter 6 are contained in the document, and relevant information as contained in the said document is furnished in form GSTR2. Now this form GSTR2 has been deferred till March 2020. Now again still it is not available. This has not been made applicable. If the document do not contain all the specified provisions but contain the details of amount of tax, description of the goods or service, value of supply, GSTN of the supplier and the recipient, and place of supply in case of interstate supply, ITC credit may be availed by such registered person. So, the preceding provision what it says, it should contain all the particulars, but the provision what it says, okay, right, if all the particulars are not there, at least if you have these items in your document or invoice, you are allowed to take input tax credit. No input tax credit shall be availed by a registered person in respect of any tax that has been paid in pursuance of any order where any demand has been conferred on account of fraud, willful misstatement, or suppression of fact. Let us say you are moving goods from one place to another place without waybill or without invoice, right? Then the goods are confiscated, or the GST department caught hold of you. and you paid the tax penalty on that. But even though you have paid the tax and penalty on that, you are not eligible to take input tax credit on that, because it is due to fraud or willful misstatement or suppression of fact. Reversal of ITC in case of non-payment of consideration within 180 days from the date of invoice. You have to add it to the output tax credit. Registered person who has availed of input tax credit on inward supply of goods or service but failed to pay the supplier thereof the value of such supply along with the tax thereon within the time limit specified in second proviso to 16 to second proviso in the to the subsection 2 of section 16 shall furnish the details of such supply, the amount of value not paid, and the amount of input tax credit availed of proportionate to such amount not paid to the supplier in form number GSTR2 for the month immediately following the period of 180 days from the date of issue of invoice. Now this form 2 is not yet made applicable, provided that the value of supplies made without consideration as specified in Schedule 1 of the said Act shall be deemed to have been paid for the purpose of second proviso to section 16 subsection 2. Because in Schedule 1 we have deemed supply, means even though there is no consideration, it will be treated as a supply. The activity or transaction will be treated as supply. There the concept of the question of consideration is not at all there. Then how will you pay it to the supplier? So for that, in respect of Schedule 1 items, the consideration is deemed to have been paid within the 180 days. Provided further, value of supplies on account of any amount added in accordance with the provisions of clause B of the subsection 15(2) shall be deemed to have been paid for the purpose. Means interest, penalty, late fees, etc. What is the time of supply for these items? Time when they are received. Then it is the time of supply. So for these interest, penalty and fees also, it is deemed that they have been paid within 180 days. Next, the amount of ITC referred to in subrule 1 shall be added to the output tax liability of the registered person for the month in which the details are furnished. So if you are not paying in the 180 days, then in the next month of the expiry, the month in which the 180 days expire, you have to add it to your output tax liability. Now interest is to be paid as per section 50 subsection 1, perioding starting when it is started, date on which you have availed the credit till the date when the amount is added to your output liability. So the date you availed to the date on which you added to the output tax liability, for that period you have to pay the interest as specified in section 50 subsection 1. The time limit specified in 16(4) shall not be applicable to claim of re-availing of any credit. If you want to take ITC, what you have to do? Let us say 1/4 invoice is dated between 1/4/19 to 31/3/20, or a debit note pertaining to the invoice given during this period. This within what time you can claim? Due date of 3B for the month of September 2020, or date of filing of annual return for financial year 2019-20, whichever is earlier. Within this time you have to take input tax rate, but this time limit is not applicable where you have reversed and retaking. Why did you reverse? Because you did not pay the supplier within 180 days. Why are you again availing? Because you paid to the supplier. The value of supply plus the tax payable on supply, you paid to the supplier. Within 180 days of the date of invoice, if you did not pay, you have to add it to the output tax. But now what happened? You paid to the supplier. Then you can retake that ITC. At the time of retaking the ITC, this time period is not applicable. This time period is not applicable. Friends, we are going to the analysis part in our next session.